Gretchen, it looks like the door got propped open. Would you close it so they can talk without having to talk over me? Yeah. Well, right? I mean, they're in their space and I'm in mine, and so I don't want to interfere with what they're doing. It's important work. Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're here. This is our final session together, which is too bad. Just a fair warning, we may or may not have a couple of confirmation kids popping in. Among four confirmation teachers, none of us could teach today. The one who is scheduled is sick, and the backup is sick, and the third one is out of town, and I'm here. So, and I thought about abandoning y'all and going in to confirmation, but I didn't want to. Because I wanted to hear, this is probably the most important session of all of them. And I really wanted to hear what y'all had to say. So anyway, but if we have a couple of Zacchaeus-sized people coming in, that's why. Okay, and there's Pastor Allison finally worked her way out of the crowd, out of the throng. So you made it. You made it. Only a little bit scarred. It's okay. I've got your scriptures right there. Okay. So I'm going to let Pastor Allison take a breath here. And let's talk about what we have talked about so far. Let's review what we've talked about so far. When there is a relational culture, and you'll see this slide more than once, people are seen and known, stories are told and cherished, people's passions intersect with the needs of the institution. And then we talked about relational meetings and what a one-to-one is and what it isn't. And I was hoping the Beavers would be here because they missed this instruction, and I was hoping they would see this, but I didn't see them this morning. I don't know. Were they here? Okay. Okay. Well, they might still get here then. Oh, thank you. I forgot about that. See, we need 2 teachers so we can get all of the equipment going. Okay, so just as a reminder, a relational meeting is intentional. It's not somebody you bump into on the sidewalk or at the store. It's not social chit-chat, which is what I love doing after church on Sundays. Hi, how are you? How are your kids? How's the weather at your place? You know, that's all important and good, and we need it. But a relational meeting is a little different than that. It's a mutual conversation. This is my personal cross to bear. It's not an interview, so you don't take notes during the meeting. You take notes afterwards. It's focused on stories. Why? What brought you here? How did that affect you? What in your life drew you to this work? It's not what? It's not information. It's not where were you born? Where did you go to high school? Where did you go to college? Where do you work? How many kids do you have? It's time limited. Okay, here's my real hard part. Usually 30 to 45 minutes, at least that's what you start with. It's not endless, although the one-to-ones that I typically have feel like they could go on. And then I leave afterwards and I think, an hour and a half was probably too long. It's an art and practice. Yes. Yes.
So say you were going to meet somebody, invite them to have coffee with you for a relational meeting.
Yeah.
Can you kind of move out of that and then just go into chit-chat about stuff in the same city?
Of course. There is no pass-fail here. And so, yes, what Mary wanted to know was, let's say you start with a relational meeting and then you want to let it morph into something more than that. Is that okay? Of course. Of course. The one-to-one police are not going to come and arrest you. I don't think so, because you're still building relationship. And in fact, the last one-to-one I had was with a gentleman from the neighborhood who came to our neighborhood meeting for climate justice. And we spent the first probably 45 minutes talking about climate justice issues. And then he's going to be a teacher. He wants to become a teacher. And so it's like, okay, let's talk about that. And we spent another 45 minutes talking about how great it is to teach and how excited he was and all of that. So yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's an art and practice and not a technique. This is not something you want to watch a YouTube video and then go out and do. Save that for when you're fixing your car. Then we talked about mediating institutions. We talked about the 3 sectors in society. There's the government sector, the market sector, and the civil sector. And the civil sector can be composed of mediating institutions when they are equipped to deal with the needs and desires of the people within those institutions. And one of our goals in organizing is to increase the size of the civil sector. And if you were in Beaverton Park yesterday or in Tigard, you saw the civil sector in, yes. I think they said there were 4,000 in Beaverton. I think, yes, it was great. It was great. I kept looking for us on the news and I haven't seen anything, but. Robin was on the news? Yes, she was. Which station? On Channel 8? I'll look it up. I'll look up the website. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I love it. So when the, what? She was playing her drums. Excellent. Well, I'm happy. Drums for Jesus. Happy to hear it. Yeah, my favorite, one of my favorite signs from yesterday was, "This is dire. Even the introverts are here."
I thought of Steve.
I know. He was, and Steve was there. That's how bad things are. My husband went to a protest. We felt like we were in college again, you know, with what are we protesting again? Is it Vietnam? Is it, you know, race things? Everything. So anyway, it was a good day. It was exhausting, but it was a good day. So mediating institutions are institutions that can form a buffer between the people who are in them and the outside pressures that are punching on them. We talked about power. There are 2 kinds of power. Power over, and I loved what Juan Carlos said this morning in his sermon. He said this in a different way. There's power over that is imbalanced, that destroys community, that leads to lack of engagement and even rebellion. How many people have you heard say, "I'm just tired. Yeah. I've been protesting since the 1960s and we've done all this before and I just don't want to do anymore"? That is one of the goals of power over. That is what they're trying to do. Because when you have power over someone, you can direct what they do. They're the puppeteer, you're the puppet. On the other hand, we go for power with. It's balanced. It builds community. If everyone in the community is empowered, that builds community. And it leads to engagement. It leads to people saying, "I can do that. I can do that. Let's do it together." Okay, so we had a one-to-one challenge last week. Let's see, am I doing this today? Yes. Last week I gave you another one-to-one challenge, and I'm wondering how many people did a one-to-one last week? I did one. Okay, and this is so, I'm sorry that no more people didn't do one-to-ones, but this is really good for our conversation today. Because if you didn't have one, what got in the way? What got in the way? That's what I want you to think about today. What gets in the way? What are the roadblocks for one-to-ones? Yeah.
Childcare.
Anybody else? We'll have more chance to talk about this as we go. But what else got in the way?
Well, for one thing, I forgot.
Okay.
And for secondly, lately I've had limited energy to go outside my own heart. So, yeah.
I got that. Anything else come to mind right away?
We live in an atomized society.
Say more about that.
Single houses with fences up, and you're in your house. Whereas if you were at Holden, that'd be a perfect place for one-to-one.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. I hadn't thought of that. I like my fence.
You'd have to actually make
I heard someone mention time as well.
In the past, I would often add more things to what I'm doing. And sometimes that was a little bit too much, but did it, it was good. It just felt good to be. I'm not there now. I'm now taking things out. Like this morning, I decided I'm not going tomorrow to Salem. I may not, even if I set a time, I might not do it. And so I'm subtracting to make what I am doing really important. It doesn't mean I don't want to talk to someone. It just, that's where my life is.
Yeah.
So I can't say it's bad. I enjoy the conversations when they happen.
I think, especially since the pandemic, I think a lot of us are reevaluating how much we're doing. Because when we couldn't do anything, after a little while, it was like, oh, this is kind of nice. Wow, I can sleep in. I don't have to do all this. And so we're still recovering from that. So all of these things are really good and really valid. They're all really good and really valid. But I have a question for you. Do you, getting to where you're going, this is an old Family Circus cartoon that I love. They did a lot of these where, okay, Billy, go out and get another log before the fire runs out. Okay, Mom. You know, if you've ever followed a toddler, you know it's not a straight line from one place to the other. Now, did he get the wood? Yes. Did the fire go out before he got back home? Yes. So did he make his goal? Halfway. I mean, in fairness, all Mom said was go get a log. She didn't say before the fire. Well, I guess she did say before the fire goes out. But anyway, so I have a question for you. How would you get to the sanctuary? And I'll let you start where you want. What's a way to get to the sanctuary? What's the direct way?
Okay.
Well, the obvious for many of us, it's drive here
Yes. Okay, good. So where are you going to park?
in the parking lot.
But that one or this one or that one?
Wherever
then
is
which-
space?
And then which door do you come in?
Pardon me?
And then which door do you come in?
Usually the front.
Yeah. But are there other ways to get there?
Sure.
If we were following our friend in the back pew back there, how do you suppose he'd get into the sanctuary?
He could get back through the back door or go around through the school entrance.
Yeah. Yeah, I see some people come in downstairs and take the elevator up, which is perfectly valid. And there are some people that wander around the building for a long time. And some people never get any farther than from their car to the sanctuary. So when I say, I'll meet you in the library, they'll say, where's that? Which is part of the issue, okay? Well, remind you what relational culture is. People are seen and known. Stories are told and cherished. People's passions intersect with the needs of the institution. So, Pastor Allison is going to take us through some thought exercises about how do we get to this relational culture, and for me, heaven is the beach. So how do we get there? That's the nirvana. How do we make this work at St. Andrew? And I'll pass it over to her.
I'll bring it over to me. Can you go back to the previous one? I can do that. Yeah, that one. Okay, so relational culture, people are seen and known, stories are told and cherished, people's passions intersect with the needs of the institution. They're able to live out their passions in a way that's meaningful to them and keeps the institution, keeps them energized and keeps the institution energized towards its mission too. So, do we agree that having a relational culture, being in relational culture heaven at St. Andrew is something that we want? Is that a fair assumption, that we want to be in relational culture? I'm saying this table's yes, this table's yes. What about this table? Yes, what about that table? Yeah, okay. So we are saying we do want to have a relational culture. And the most direct path to a relational culture is the one-to-one conversations that we've been talking about. That is like if we wanted to walk to the sanctuary, the most direct path would be right there. Right? So one-to-ones are the most direct way. They you can build a relational culture the fastest this way, and you can go the deepest this way. So I would say that relational meetings, these one-to-one meetings we've been talking about, inviting people to coffee to have these meetings, is a necessary part of how we build a relational culture. But we are aware that we're running into roadblocks. There are things that are causing us to not unite separately in your own homes. Yes. There are things that are getting in the way of us doing that most direct route. Maybe it's the most direct, but there are a bunch of walls and spikes and rocks and stuff in the way. Okay? So we're interested not in just saying, well, we're not going to do relational meetings. We still want to do them, but we're also interested in creative ideas of how to get to this relational culture in other ways also. How do we navigate around those barriers? Whether that's like incorporating one-to-ones in other settings rather than having to like make an appointment to meet someone to do one. So that's what we're interested in. We're interested in how can we make this work for St. Andrew? How can we, do a relational culture and incorporate some other pathways to get to it, because we maybe need more than one tool. Okay, so let's make sure we got everything. What else gets in the way? So I have for like not remembering once the commitment's been made. These are all very real. Limited energy, limited time, that we're all isolated in our own homes, and so we would have to like make a special effort to meet up with somebody. That we're having to prioritize what we do, and we're choosing to do less at this time rather than more. What else? Oh, there's a map.
Oh, here. Oh, did you? I'm going to say something.
Okay. I think there's a feeling sometimes like, here I am thinking, okay, so I'll do a one-on-one, but then I need to call someone, and it almost feels like an imposition.
That can happen. Sometimes, people feel that way.
There's a hesitancy to reach out in that way in something that is prescribed. Well, yeah, I mean, so... Well, yeah, and for some, maybe a little, Pam said a little intimidating too.
It's also intimidating.
What if you called someone and said, I'd like to have a one-to-one with you, and they go, oh, I don't think I feel like it. I mean, that would be rejective. Is that a word?
Yep.
Yeah. It's like asking someone.
I live in a retirement place, and there are two ladies that I will not ever call. And they won't answer me if I greet them. They'll and they have both gotten after me for doing certain things, like not putting my chair into the table enough, not following the exercise leader fast enough, or things. So there are people that you would not call, and that would be me. But there are many that I could.
Liz, I also heard you say, how do you even know? Who would you call? How would you know who to reach out to?
Call?
What did you say? Everybody was talking at the same time.
Yes.
There's a lot of us in this church. How do we choose who to approach? And also, I was going to say that, 2 years ago, I didn't even know what a one-to-one was. So I feel like we're doing a lot here, because I'm in a lot of different groups here, and a lot of us start with a one-to-one conversation.
Great. So there's actually even a little bit of a sense of progress, so there doesn't necessarily feel as much urgency to do them, because it's like, we're already making progress on this. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
I'd also add that sometimes we're so used to doing things in a cooperative way that we tend, like when we get together for rolling all the towel with everything for Lutheran World Relief, you know, we do so many things on group activity rather than one-on-one. And so it's outside of our normal comfort level.
Yeah.
I kind of concur with that. I think if you follow your passion and take the opportunity to involve yourself in that within the community, one-on-ones could possibly naturally happen. And I guess I have a question. Is there a problem with the scenic route?
We are in the midst of like what might be a constitutional crisis. We don't have time for the scenic route, in my opinion. But this is why we're entertaining this conversation, is because like for like people like me, I'm like, what's wrong with the scenic route is like, who's got time for that? Like we need these relationships now. We need the change now. It is urgent. But we're also trying to make space to so we're going to do some brainstorming of some like alternatives to the most direct path, because we want to have a balance of being like finding a way to bring other people in who might not participate in one-to-ones. So we want to try to find the scenic path, but like my initial reaction of what's wrong with it is the urgency. Like it's yeah. But yeah, so I think and that kind of is part of what's getting in the way is if we don't really, we don't feel an urgency for it, you know? Mm-hmm. Do you want to maybe go to Jan?
The only choices are to take the scenic route or not do anything at all.
Yes.
Because I think that's where a lot of people get bogged down, is that they think, well, I can't do 15 one-to-ones a week with people I don't know, so I'm not going to do anything.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I have to comment that now that I see what it's like and how much fun and joy and whatever, I don't want to stop. I want to keep going. I want to keep pushing. So I've got an urgency to keep moving.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to say a little bit about getting the what and not just the why. And that I find like the what is almost your first step, because I don't know what questions to ask, what to learn from somebody unless I know a little bit of the what.
And what do you mean by the what?
Well, it's like even the question of what brought, where are you from, and who, what do you do, and and what's meaningful to you. I mean, some of those are the whats, and I need a little bit of that.
There needs to be some what so you know what to ask about. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So glad you brought that up.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the dirty little secret. We're not telling you everything here. There are things that you don't know. And when you come to a longer training, there's a 2-day training next Wednesday and Thursday that I invite all of you to come to. You will learn that a one-to-one actually has 3 parts. And that first part is introductions. So that's when you say, hi, I'm Pat. I grew up in Iowa. Where'd you grow up? And then you look for those commonalities. And then you get into because you can't know what to ask until you get to know the person. So you're absolutely right. The difference with a relational meeting, though, is that it doesn't stop at the what. It keeps going. Okay.
I saw Jan had your hand raised. Steve. Great. Do you remember? Okay, you wanna pass for?
I was gonna say something. Oh yes, the urgency. So I forget. Yeah. I have a memory. So yeah, the urgency thing. There are 2, 3, many different things we're talking about here. Here, and I believe in this particular class at this particular time, because I think I was around when we were deciding to do this class, but then I booted off to another team. And But one of the things we're doing here is not just relational meetings on what's happening in our world, in our, what I consider rather messed up country at the moment, but there's that. But then there's a reason we were starting this before all that stuff happened, was to have us here, the congregation at St. Andrew, the fellowship here at St. Andrew, was to broaden that and deepen that. And to that, I see, I won't call it no urgency, but a more of a depth and something that isn't like rush to do it, rush to do it. It's more important to do it and do it well. And so if that helps anybody take that urgency feel away from it, do what you can and do it well and do it deeply and try again, I guess, is the way I feel it. And like yesterday or whenever I did it, I had a very deep conversation with a neighbor, which I hardly ever do. And it was really nice and it was good. We even sat in the driveway for a long time. We don't normally do that. So, I mean, it kind of grows those kinds of things. And that's really where we're going for this particular item here. It's not to fix the fact that my neighbor's friends were given the 5 things you did this week or you'd be kicked out of the FDIC. So it's not just trying to get that fixed, but to deal with people's feelings around those things and grow and that kind of thing.
Couple things came to mind for me too. For me personally, I find it helpful, like I feel like if I'm just gonna go kind of like out and randomly do a couple one-to-ones here and there, that I don't feel very motivated to do that because it just feels kind of scattershot and it doesn't feel like it's leading to anything. So I don't know if anyone else feels that way. Look, I'm not gonna prioritize that because it doesn't really, like, what's it actually building? Like, I don't really feel a sense that this is actually building towards something. It just feels like I could do that one-to-one or I could not, and what difference would that make? So I know for me, like, it's really helpful to have like a focus and to have like a group. Like, with this group of 5 people, we're each gonna go out and do one-to-ones, and we're gonna think about who we wanna talk to and split those names up, so that we like talk to the people that we need to talk to in order to make progress on the issue or concern, whatever it is that we're wanting to make progress on. For me, I find that much more motivating. And then I also have built-in accountability because then we're gonna meet with those people again and be like, what did you hear? So it doesn't just feel like I could do a one-to-one out in the ether and no one would ever really know, and then like I'd have a stronger relationship with that one person, but it wouldn't really be like so clearly building towards something. So for me, that's really helpful. I'm wondering what other people are gonna say.
Yeah, I have another word about urgency and also priority, especially these days. I don't particularly like doing one-on-ones in the first place, but I had a lot going on this week. For example, Friday afternoon, I spent a lot of time sending out press releases to the media about our protest march on Palm Sunday. And so that, to me, was much more urgent than doing one-to-ones. And then, of course, yesterday afternoon was the Hands Off rally in Beaverton. And now, those things are urgent, and as far as I'm concerned, are a higher priority than doing these one-to-ones. The one-to-ones are the scenic route on my priority list.
Oh, thank you. That's like the things that are urgent and the things that are important. You know, like one axis is urgency and one axis is importance. And it's really easy to like only do stuff on the urgent side, like urgent and important, urgent and not important, and to not do the stuff that's important but not urgent. I know I really fall into that. And I think one-to-ones are one of those things. It's hard for it to feel urgent because it's like, well, you could do it next week or the week after. You know, it's important for building the base for getting the turnout for events or building the relationships and the theological foundation that we even can do a protest march for Palm Sunday at this church. Not every church can pull that off. That's because of like the relational and theological work that's been done over the years, long before I got here. You know, and so it's really important, but it's not like urgent in the moment. And so I think that's part of what makes one-to-ones hard to prioritize for me too, is that they're important but don't feel urgent usually.
Maybe I'm skipping ahead, but I wanted to follow through on something you said, Pastor Allison, about, a bit of focus on who we do our one-to-ones with. So an idea that just ran through my head, a whole bunch of us yesterday ran into each other, intentionally and not intentionally, at the Hands Off rally. A follow-up meeting of that, just an open invitation to the people that went to that meeting, because I think we're all feeling like I'm feeling, now what? Now what can we do? That was great. I felt so good. So a follow-up meeting of that group, and within that group,
Have one-to-ones.
Have one-to-ones, and then report back. So
that's
that might be
amazing.
an
So that
effective-
leads into what we want to talk about next in your table groups. So in your table groups, we are interested in gathering ideas for how, ideas for other routes we can take besides just asking people to just go randomly do one-to-ones on their own time and having to set it up themselves and all of that stuff. What are some alternative routes that we could take? And that's a perfect example of after an event, let's gather the people who went to that event who have something shared that they're passionate about to talk about, and we can do relational meetings within that and have it paired with something that feels like it has a focus and a direction. So that's a great example. So talk amongst your tables. Did you need to say something to the group before we split out?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the ones who. What about those who wanted to and didn't do?
Wanted
That's
to go and
another
didn't
group.
go. Exactly.
Why didn't we when we thought we would?
Yes, totally. That could be another group. Yeah, totally. Okay, so Liz.
When you meet as a group, then you all have the same prompt question, right? I mean, that's what we're experiencing in the groups.
We're kind of just brainstorming. Right now, I'm inviting you to speak in your table group. Basically, Mary gave an example of an answer to what you're supposed to be talking about in your table group next, which is, what are some ways we can move in the direction of a relational culture as a congregation, besides just being go do one-to-ones, please? How can we incorporate relational work into what we're doing in other ways than this sort of scattershot way that we all find we end up not really doing? Okay, so come up with ideas, such as the one that Mary came up with.
Would compel people. I don't know if I like that word for a one-to-one.
What would inspire?
Inspire.
Yeah.
What did you guys talk about?
What would inspire?
Well, what we were talking about, what happens, we do the one-to-one, and then what? And then what? How do you get organized to get something done? How do you get organized to stop the government from shipping people to El Salvador without due process?
Yep. So that's where the other, for community organizing, there's listening, but then you have to gather what you heard and then connect people and do research to figure out who has the power. You do the power analysis, so it has to go somewhere. Yeah. Okay, so what ideas? Well, we should capture what Mary said before, but maybe you guys.
Well, yeah, Liz, tell about your sign. This story.
Oh, I have to tell about. Okay, she wants me to tell it. So my sign that I didn't create it, somebody else did, but I was holding the sign that said, "I am a Christian against Christian nationalism," something to that effect. I had probably half a dozen people come up to me and want to take my picture with that sign. One was a young man who said he grew up in a Christian nationalist family, and most of his family still is, and he wanted to take that picture of the sign to show them that this is not what Christians are.
Absolutely, that's beautiful. Now I want to copy that for the Palm Sunday sign. Christians against Christian nationalism.
It's in the office. The sign is.
I'm carrying it. I'm just kidding.
All right. What did you guys talk about at this table? Well, one thing I talked about was the fact that the call committee did one-to-ones throughout our whole process. And I think not only did it help us learn about what people's values were. But as we came to decisions, when somebody spoke up about something, we all respected it. We learned that we learned what was important to people, and so we didn't brush their comment off. We knew that this was an important thing, and I think that was really valuable. One of the other things that we talked about is doing the same thing in other meetings, and then a couple years ago, we suggested doing a one-to-one question, a narthex one-to-one question, and it didn't really kind of take off, but we didn't really have any context for it. And so now that we have context, perhaps we can do it and in a different way that we can help, we can have those conversations, and that will drive things a little bit better.
So I don't know if you meant to be saying this or not, but I had the idea based on what you said, that you incorporated one-to-ones into the process of the Horizon process, which was a discernment process.
And the call committee.
And the call committee, yeah, which made me like just think of like incorporating one-to-ones in our discernment about lots of things.
Right.
Like there are lots of teams that are having to make decisions. I think of the facilities team, for one, as having to make decisions about like where to invest in this facility and how to use the facility. And while those are feel like literally nuts and bolts and pipes, those are values questions, and like people like have deep opinions about that because of their values. And so like incorporating one-to-ones into discernment about those kinds of decisions, then also just helps us grow in relationship in general.
What about having, occasionally having one-to-ones at supper club or something like that?
Great. Who else? What else did you guys talk about here? Ideas? Okay.
I should, oh yeah, so
What did we talk about?
I should definitely capture the one Mary had before.
Mary had.
So how would we say that one? Like follow up, shared experiences, you know, like, as a follow-up to shared experiences. Yeah, follow-up gatherings. So then you don't have to schedule it on your own. You don't have to be like, oh, so-and-so went to the protest, I'll see if she wants to get coffee. It's like, oh, let's all go to this follow-up gathering. That makes it easy. There's less of a barrier because you don't have to do the effort of scheduling. Okay, follow-up gatherings.
Pastor Allison?
Yes.
But I think, there it is. If you were to do it on your own, it's easier to do a one-on-one, one-to-one, after you've had a common experience.
It's true. Then you know you have a shared interest.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We talked about at our table a possibility of, patterned after the supper groups, have one-to-one groups where people just sign up. Either could be based on a topic or based on a group of people you want to get to know better.
Yeah, and organizing that's sometimes called a house meeting, where you gather, or sometimes it's called a table talk, which is not my preferred term because that can mean that means something else. But house meetings, they don't have to be in people's houses, but yeah, but where you have like one-to-one groups. Yeah.
I wanted to raise something that came up at our table, which is that some people felt that very brief one-to-one times, like if we have 10 minutes at the beginning of a meeting to answer one question, didn't feel like they would end that conversation feeling seen and heard and understood. It's too little time. And so that was just
a challenge.
I wanted to share that.
It's a challenge of doing them in meetings.
Yeah, I brought that up. It's tough to get past the what questions when you just have 10 minutes. Yeah.
And it can be tough to get past just the initial awkwardness of, oh, I'm supposed to talk to somebody, you know? It can take a little bit of time to ease into that. So it is like, if you're gonna do it in meetings, you really do have to carve out enough time for it. You can't just be like, let's do like a 5-minute one-to-one. I mean, you can, it's more scenic. The less time you have, the more scenic it is. You're not able to go as deep and get as meaningful, you know? Repetition can help, yeah. And that helps get over the weirdness of doing it at all, as you know you're going to be doing it, and so maybe you ease into it more quickly. That's a good point, yeah.
Anybody else?
One-to-ones at the council meeting, they've talked about doing that, but I've been off and on council for a number of years, and some of the council meetings got out at 11 p.m.
No.
So we don't want to head down that path.
We do one-to-ones every council meeting, and that was something that was just, I was told that when I came in June, that we do one-to-ones at the beginning of every council meeting, and I don't think we really ever end late. Maybe sometimes we end at like 9:10 instead of 9, but we do 7 p.m. to 9 o'clock meetings, and we do one-to-ones at the beginning of every council meeting, which I really value. Yeah, well, yeah, we do it first. That's the whole thing. You do it first so that you don't run out of time for it.
Yeah, okay, so Pat wanted me to share an idea I had. She and I talked about it one evening.
Yes.
It was based on a website I set up a few years ago for my family. It's called ChristiansenFamilyStories.com. One summer, my cousins and I started sharing family stories over email, and I saved all of them and set up a website and put all of those stories on the website, and all of my family can go and look at the website and see all of the stories from that my family had shared. And I also put old family photos and even excerpts from audio recordings from the past, and we can actually listen to people telling their stories, and some of them have passed away, and it's quite exciting to hear them tell their own stories. And now, one disadvantage of that, of course, is that you're not sitting person to person like you are at one-to-ones, but if all else fails, written stories could be a way to get to know other people in our congregation. And I have a little mini MP3 recorder that could be loaned out for people who would like to talk about them, tell their stories, and make an audio recording. And, I know how to set up websites, and so that would be an option, not to replace one-to-ones, because, like I said, a big advantage of one-to-one is that it provides an in-person connection to someone else, and that's important. But I just offer that as a scenic route, so to speak.
And I think you mentioned also that, like, if someone reads it, that might give them, like, oh, now I want to go ask this person about what so it could lead to in-person conversation that might feel like, if people, often with one-to-ones, we talk about modeling vulnerability. Like, if someone shares like something that's actually like kind of deep with someone else, then the other person is like, oh, I guess it's okay for me to share at that level too. And so if somebody would rather like write their story, and then someone else might be like, oh, I actually like have a similar story that's really personal and deep, and I maybe feel more safe sharing that with this person because I've read their story.
That would also be a good way to involve homebound folks and people with less mobility.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
It also makes me think of posting when we had our stewardship season and we had some people share stories. Some of those stories were quite personal, and we shared those then on the website, and people could read them later. So a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. Great. Any others? Yeah.
Just related to that, one of the conversations I had with somebody who's really new is that what she misses as a new person is that many of us have a shared history. And so that would actually enhance people's understanding of that shared history. So, when we talk about somebody that has passed, or that, somebody who was really inspirational for us, those stories would really help them understand.
You're always an
more.
outsider because you don't know the stories. But what if we actually told the stories? Then you know the stories.
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for these ideas. I think it's really wise for us to know some of the most direct routes, but then also kind of warm us up and ease us in, because as Pat said, if it's all or nothing, that doesn't work. So how do we, incorporate this relational culture in other ways besides just one-to-ones, or incorporating those in creative ways? So thank you for these ideas.
I can't do two things at a time, so I'm going to put the mic in here so I can push the mouse button. Okay, so now this is where you think to yourself, what is your interest here? Remember we talked about public and private. Where does my private interest intersect with this public need to develop a relational culture? How can you help us drive around the roadblocks? Maybe you would be the one to send an email out to the folks who came to the rally yesterday and say, hey, let's get together. How about this time, or this time? I bet we could find a place at church to meet. Maybe you're the one who would like to do that. So how do we get around the roadblocks or blast through them? Even better. So think about your interest. Any other final thoughts before we go on to evaluation? Okay. So it's always good to check in and see if we accomplished goals. That's the old teacher in me. So goal 1 was to help St. Andrew move toward a relational culture. Did we take a step toward that? I hope. Okay. Introduce practices that assist that process. So we talked about one-to-ones, we talked about house meetings, okay. And deeper relationships between members of our community. Did you get to know somebody a little bit better? Great, thanks. Okay, next steps. There is a 2-day training for community organizing next Wednesday and Thursday. I have talked to you about this many times, but I'm going to say it one more time because we could use a few more people. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be led by somebody who is a real expert in the field and has revamped the curriculum for community organizing. So if you took the community organizing training years ago and you thought it was misogynistic, patriarchal, hierarchical, and had some problems, yes, Lisa Davey and her, yeah. And if you left with a, oh, ick, why are all those people so mad? I encourage you to come. It's at St. Andrew Catholic Church, so our cousin church, and it's from 9 to 4 on Wednesday and Thursday, and you will be fed, but there's lunch included. And it's free to us because we're St. Andrew members, and St. Andrew is a member of MACG. So if you want to know more about that, there's an article in the Weekly News, or you can talk to me. I'm not presenting anything in this training. It's going to be a all Lisa show, and so you don't have to listen to me for once. She's really good. Yeah, Lisa is wonderful. She is really good. She's really good. Okay, also check out the organizing team. We're calling it the community organizing team now because we used to be the MACG core team, and then we were the connections team, and then the connections team broke off and became its own team. So now the organizing team is the community organizing team because we have feet in more than one pot. We are still involved with MACG, which is a broad-based organization and secular. And we're also involved in the Oregon Synod's secular organizing efforts. Sacred, excuse me. Yeah, you know, the faith thing, the church thing, the churchy thing. So we're involved in both of those, and so we didn't want to limit ourselves to just one name. But we meet the first Tuesday of every month from 7 to 8:30 in the St. Andrew Room. You are all welcome to join us. And I'm not sure when the Connections team meets, but check the...
Like third Saturdays, maybe?
Third Saturday? Okay. Okay, so check out the calendar in the weekly news. I want to put a pin in this so you can put it in your calendar now. We're going to have a delegate assembly on June 8th, and it's going to be here in St. Andrew. So, what's a delegate assembly? A delegate, you are all delegates. Do you remember that election where you ran for delegate and you got it? Yeah. Because you are a member of our St. Andrew community, you are a delegate for MACG. And a couple of times a year, we try to get as many institutions as possible together in the same room so we can talk to each other and report on what we've been hearing from our people. So a couple weeks ago, when we did that little exercise in here about where are the pressures that you're feeling, I'm going to add that information to the body of information that other people have been hearing. And then at the delegate assembly, we hear stories, we hear challenges, and then as a group, we decide the direction that MACG is going to go. So it's on June 8th from 3 to 5 in the afternoon. Please come if you're able. And then stay alert to future activities sponsored by MACG and Sacred Organizing. And for this, you just have to read the weekly news, because one of us gets something in there whenever there's something going on. Okay? Thank you. Now, we always do a plus delta. Delta is the mathematical and scientific symbol for change. So it is common practice in organizing to, at the end of every meeting or session or class, to do a plus delta. So in general, should we ever want to do this again, and stay tuned because there may be a related 3 or 4 session class in the fall that is related to this kind of work. So what worked and what should we change next time? We have had between 19 and 22 people every Sunday, so that's really good. I'm really happy with that. Yeah. So what worked?
I like that there was discussion in the table groups. That was really helpful to get to know people and get to put it immediately in practice.
I like that there was a variety of presenters so that everybody has their own way of conveying information, and I liked that.
Good. I get really tiresome after a while.
I wish we could have offered childcare during this class to enable more people to attend.
I would have loved to see the high school youth here.
Yeah.
Good.
Mm-hmm. I will tell you that the high school class came to a recent meeting of worship planners to plan the Easter season. And a lot of what we're going to be doing is based on ideas that they brought to that meeting. So buckle up.
What else?
That's in our mission.
It is. Well, and remember that this morning's band was the idea and the work not only of Susan Reiser, but also of Evan McGarvey, who was a little tiny kid when I saw him the first time, and now is grown up to be this wonderful semi-adult person. So
anyway, good things happen when we include the high schoolers. So
you're right. Yeah. You're right.
Good information, and I appreciate the graphics. It helps me focus.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciated what Jan said earlier about trying to clarify urgency, because I don't think I quite had a clear idea of what the focus of the outcome was going to be.
Do you think is that still like a tension
No, I think the way Jan presented it, it seemed like there were multiple things that were trying to be achieved, but I wasn't quite sure sometimes.
Good point.
Well, it is a minute, I can't see that far, but I think it's a minute after 12 when we really do try to end on time. That's one of our core values. So thank you for coming to this whole class. Yeah. And stay tuned.